Welcome to lesson 2 of functional programming with Bob the Developer. In this lesson, we're going to take a look at one of the most popular functions out there called filter. As I mentioned before, there are a lot more than 3 functions such as filter, map, and reduce in the functional programming world. However, the purpose isn't to memorize everything. It is to understand what goes under the hood so no one becomes a zombie, which I've been for a while when I first learned about functional programming. Today in this lesson, let's take a look at one of the most popular functions called filters, which is used to filter an array. And let's see how they are created and also learn how to create our own custom filter. Let's get started. Welcome to Learn Swift with Bob. Today let's talk about filter, which is part of functional programming. It is a filter to functions often used by Apple engineers and Swift developers to get things done. For example, if you have an array from 1 to 100, if you want to only get the even numbers, you can use this filter functions to get the even numbers in one line of code, with one line of code. Okay, that is powerful. Well, first of all, let's get to your pass. By the way, people use this kind of functions. People use all kinds of functions without knowing the behind implementation. It's important to understand what the heck's going on when you're using this function, because every time when you're using functions, if you don't know about the behind implementation, then it's not good for you, because sometimes you want to create your own function in the future depending on the context. But if you don't know how to create a function using a functional programming approach, well, you're stuck, all right? You become a zombie. You just become a passive, just using code written by somebody else, right? Sometimes that's good, as long as you understand the principle behind it, okay? So today let's talk about how to create our own custom filter and understand what the heck's going on underneath, okay? So let's begin with a non-functional way to get things done. So if you want to get even numbers, this is how you did in the past. You get the even number from I to 1 to 4 and from 1 to 10, and then if it's divisible by 2, you append to this even number array, okay? But when it comes to functional programming, I think I introduced you last time, you can do something like this. Array 1 to 10, filter, and you get the number divisible by 2, and now this thing returns the value on the even numbers, okay? If you don't believe me, well, let's find out if that works. Yeah, you see right there. Yeah, so you might wonder, what the heck's going on? Okay, that is a question. I'm going to talk about how to get things going and what is how to make it happen. So apparently you're entering closure block to this filter function, and then let's take a look at it. First of all, we're trying to replicate how to get things done like this. Okay, this is very powerful. How many lines of this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can get this thing done with one line of code. Okay, that is a powerful filter, and we're going to take a look at more and more. So now let's learn how to create our own custom filter to understand what the heck's going on. So for example, let's say we have an array. My array. Let's say you're in high school or college. You have A, and B, and D. Okay, it can be anything. It can be number. It can be true. It can be false. It can be any type of data. It doesn't really matter. But you want to filter out the data. Let's say you only want to get the value of A's only. You don't want to get B or D, because my mom only wanted to see A's only. So you want to only get A's. Okay? So how to do that? Well, let's first begin with the non-functional way to appreciate functional way after. So if you want to only get the A value within an array, well, you probably do, let's create a function, array called happy grade, empty string value, and then you probably do something like this. For grade in recent grade refers to this, and then if his grade is A, append grade to this happy grade, and else that my mama is not happy. Okay, so of course B and B are not A, so it's gonna print my mama is not happy. Okay, so if you now print happy grade on the bottom, you'll see that it's A right there, okay? That is how you did in the past using imperative non-functional way. And again, what you want to do is you want to get things done in one line of code, okay? One single line of code. Cool? All right, let's see how to get this done. So let's talk about the functional way. First of all, just like here, we're going to design a closure block that you're going to enter to the filter. First, we're not going to design the filter first. We're going to design this closure block first, okay? And you'll see what's happening. And then we're going to enter the closure block into this filter function that we're going to design soon, custom filter. So first of all, you can create var is mom happy. Okay, this is a closure block, by the way. And you're going to enter string value, okay? A or, B or D or anything like that. And then it's going to be, you're going to, right there. And let's call this thing grade. The first parameter, return grade equals A, okay? So now, if the grade is equals A, it's gonna return. So if the grade is A, right, it's gonna return what? True. If it's B equals A, no, it's gonna return false. All right, this is a shorter way of saying it, okay? So now what's happening is you can do is mom happy? You can enter what? Let's try enter A. Is mom happy? Enter B. Right there. You'll see that it's going to print true and false. Okay? It's going to return true or false. Because if it's A, yeah, true. If it's B, yeah, false. Well, you can also write it like this way. You can also write this, is mom happy? This way, okay? This is a closure block. The first parameter, is it A? Yeah, return true. If the $ first parameter is B, it's gonna return false. So this thing has become this way, okay? This is a very concise way of doing it. Well, yeah, you can write closure block like this. It's very, very simple, nice and simple, okay? Cool. Anyway, so we've designed this closure block. They're going to pass into this filter, custom filtering, but we haven't designed a custom filter yet. You only designed this closure block, right? Let's create a custom filter. Create a function that takes the closure block. So this is what you're going to do. Create a function. Call it simple string filter, and then you're going to enter grades, okay? Let's create enter grades. Let's create grades. And then let's call it operation, okay? And this thing will take string and it will return bool, just like that. So the operation will be the closure block. So if you enter A, it's something to return false, true. If you enter B, it's gonna return false. If you enter the closure block, this is the operation block here, okay? But here, let's call it happy grade, string value, and then let's do the empty value. And the for grade in grades refers to the value you're going to enter. And then you're going to execute this operation block. So for example, you're going to the string filter, you're going to enter the grade in the past was recent grade. And then you're going to enter is mom happy. Okay. So we're going to use this operation right now. The operation is mom happy, right? So you're going to call it is mom happy. If operation, you enter grade here. Happy grade, grade plus grade. Well, I'm going to explain to you. Let's see if I can explain this. So first of all, in this function, you're going to enter grade. So in this case, you enter recent grade right here. So it contains A, B, AAs and B and I believe and D right there. Okay, and you're also going to enter operation, which is a closure block. Okay, so right now the closure block you've entered is mom happy. But what is mom happy can do is when you pass A, it's going to return true. When you pass B, it's going to return false, right? So you've entered it right there. So in the happy grade, you have a string value, array, empty value. So for grade right now, A, B, B, or whatever, and you're going to call this operation. You're going to call this operation closure block. This is a closure block. Right now, operation is mom happy, right? You're going to enter the grade. So right now, grade can be A, grade can be B, grade can be D. But if it returns true, if this block becomes true, you're going to do happy grade dot append the grade. Append the grade. If it's false, okay, if it's false, you don't have to write this way, right? This is redundant. This is not good. Just right there. Happy grade is false. You're gonna simply ignore, or you can do this. Not the grade I want. Okay. Not the grade I want. Not the grade I want. Okay. This is functional programming. What you did here, you've entered what? You've entered this operation block into this closure block, and then you're using this closure block within this function using for and loop. Okay. So now what's happening is, let's try to print this. Print. Right there. Why is it 0? Well, because you have not. It's because you have not returned. This function does not return anything. So let's do string, and then you can do return happy grade. Right there. You'll see the A, and A. That's it. That's what functional programming is. Functional programming is nothing more than functions like this. And you're going to enter operation closure block, and then run this closure block within this function, and then do some operation and get the value you wanted. Okay, that's what functional programming is. So you will see throughout this the entire course, entire lesson, entire chapter that you'll enter operation, and whatever operation you enter in, you will get the job done. Okay, so this is one of the application I'm talking about. So right now, you've entered a closure block indirectly, right? You've indirectly passed is mom happy. But you're also able to pass closure block directly. Okay, how to do that? Well, I think you already know how to do this. You can do simple string filter, enter the grade, recent grade, and then here you can do something like this. This is what? This is, you can use trailing closure, okay? And then you can do, let's call this, actually you don't need, right there, and then you call it element, or you can create grade in return grade equals A. Or this is right there, boom. Print. Alright, these are identical. Again, if you're not familiar with Clojure and trying to take this lesson right now, you are doomed, okay? Please leave this lesson right now. You got to know Clojure 100%. There's no excuse for that. There's an entire chapter for you to learn in chapter 3 with closures, so make sure you understand what Clojure does. So this is a closure block, all right? This is like a function, and then this function will be used by the simple string filter. Just like it above, this is a closure block, okay? And then this closure block is used by the filter internally, okay? It's being executed internally by the filter function, okay? So you understand what the heck is going on with filter. Nothing more than running this for and loop, and then if it's true, then we append to this happy array. And that's what exactly happening in this filter function as well, okay? So, but this is not the best time. This is not the best way to go about, because this is not, when it comes to function, we always want to make things generic, right? We want to make things generic. You don't want to only work with string value. That would be wasting your time. You want to make sure things work out with string int. Doesn't matter what you want to work with. So how to make this function generic? Well, we can do something like this. Let's call it Bob filter, okay? And let's call it Bob. Doesn't matter. You can use T. I'm gonna use T later, but for now, let's use Bob. Call it enter array, all right? Just like that above, okay? And in fact, actually, no. I think the better way of doing it is just copy this. Just copy this. Call it Bob filter, and then let's call this array instead of grades. Let's call it Bob. And also, you need to make sure to identify itself as a generic function. You have to enter Bob here, and then operation. Call it Bob. You're gonna return Bob, okay? And then let's call this result. because we don't know. And this was Bob, a bunch of Bobs there. And it's called this element instead of grades, and it's called this array, okay? And operates as element, and then you're gonna append the result, append element, and return what? Return result. Okay, that's it. That's how you make a function generic. So now you'll be able to, as long as you define what Bob is, all right? As long as you define Bob, it could be string, it can be int. Now you're able to enter all kinds of stuff. We're gonna talk more practical application more and more. But for now, this is how you make a generic filter. And of course, this is quite absurd. You don't want to make things type Bob. You want to make sure things like, the better way would be using this T, my filter T, enter array T, operation T, and then return T. Okay, and everything else is the same as the above. I didn't want to mention this right away because this thing can get pretty, what do you call that, overwhelming. But as long as you understand the fundamentals, how the filter function works behind the scene, this thing will just come across more familiar, okay? So now we understand the fundamental. Let's talk about the practical aspects, how we can use filter functions, okay? Yeah, it took me a little while for me to get to the very bottom, but it's important to get to know the fundamentals, how the filter function works. It's impossible to know every common functions, filter, map, reduce. There are a lot more than just filter. That probably hundreds of functions, but as long as you get to the fundamentals that you're using closure block and that closure block is used within the function, then you want to make things generic. As long as you understand the fundamentals, everything else will become much easier. So now let's get to the fundamentally practical examples with Bob the Developer. Okay, so now you want to, let's say you have a student from 1 to 100. Let's say you want to get the student from only who succeeded getting grade of 93 or above, okay? Because that's an A. So let's say student A student. Let's call it I'm going to use my filter right above here. I'm going to enter array value. Let's call it array and 1 to 100. Again, make sure you define what T is. You're able to define what T is because right now 1 to 100 is able to tell Swift that, hey, right now I'm working with int, okay? But in this operation here, I'm going to enter a closure block, okay? Right here. And you can do this. The first parameter, $0 is greater than 93, and what do you call it? Where is the end? I can't see. And 0 is smaller than 100, equal to 100. Okay. So now print a student right there. It will only get the value who are greater than 93 and also smaller than greater than equal less than 100. Okay, so that's how you filter stuff out. That's it. That's what filter can be used. So when you're working with a database, let's say you want to get a value from your database, and you want to filter out some sort of data. You want to have some sort of like username has to be equals Bob, username has to be equals Bob Lee, password equals that. You can use simply this filter function without having to use this for and lib all the time. This is quite hideous. You don't want to do that. You want to simply use functions, okay? And then you can customize the function by just entering the closure block that you're working with, okay? Customize the closure block, okay? This part can be a little confusing, but again, we all cover many times how to work with closure. If you're not comfortable, just make sure review the closure block and try to review as much as you can, because I think that makes myself clear. So now we talked about how to filter numbers. You can filter all kinds of stuff, but you can also filter out vote counting. So let's say you vote true, false, true, false. What if you want to get the value which is true? How to do that? Well, if you want to get the true value, you can say true answer equals my filter array. You're going to enter the array value, and this operation, and of course you're going to use this, what we call that. You can enter a closure block, and it has to be true. Let's take a look at it now. Print true answer. True answer. Come on. True and true. Okay? So you're only getting the true value from this answer array. Okay? Am I making sense? Hopefully I'm making sense. Hopefully. If I'm not making sense, well, by the way, I've written into our article for you guys, so just review this article if you're not confused. We're going to use exactly the same principles and ideas here. So, we're using great. So if you are so confused, take a look at this article in the resource page, okay? That's what I can do for you. Or you can always ask me a question one-on-one. I will always answer for you guys. So you can also use trailing closure method, my filter array, and then the first parameter equals false. You get the false answer, okay? But however, what's the good thing about filter is Swift Foundation Library comes with its own filter. For example, you can use something like this. Array is 1 to 100 is actually comes along with the built-in filter method. This filter method is already designed by the Apple engineers, and then you do filter and then filter again. All right, this thing returns the returns string value of int of an array, and then you can filter again to get the value of int array. Okay, we call it chaining. We do this once, second time do this, third time do this. We call it chaining. It happens continuously. You can do that. When it comes to reactive programming, you're going to use a lot of chaining. I do plan in the future to cover React Swift, reactive programming, which I love. You'll never code the same way. It's basically learning how to code, how to create UI with using functional programming. It's so much faster, so much more readable. But that's what chaining does. Okay. So how to have a filter function like this? Well, this is the most pure form you can ever have. So right now we have extension to array. So this 0 to 100 right now is an array, right? You have enter my filter, okay? And then there's an operation right here. Element refers to the type of this array. It has to be the associated type protocol in programming. I'm not going to talk about it right now, but element refers to the type of the array. Right now, the array is what? The type of the element is what? Determined based on the value of enter we work with. And then returns that. The rest is the same. Self refers to the object itself. And then append. So now you're able to use something like this. Okay, this is a my filter coming from this one. Okay, you're able to do that. Well, in this lesson, I talked about the principle behind the functional programming when it comes to using filter. It was a pretty long lesson, but all I want to say is nothing more than passing closure block, and then closure block is used within this function just like here, operation right there. Okay, that's what functional programming is. And depending on what you enter within the closure block, it just manipulates the data. So you can do all kinds of stuff with one line of code. And this lesson might be a little tough for you, and also it's tough for me to explain. I think I stuttered a lot throughout the entire lesson, but hopefully I made sense. If not, if you're still struggling a little bit, you can always ask me questions. I'll be right there for you guys. And if you need my help, just call me up through the phone or email, Slack. You know what to do. So see you guys in the lesson. I'm sorry, I think I felt like it wasn't the best lesson that I could present myself with, but hopefully you guys understood. So see you guys in the next lesson. Congratulations, you've learned what goes under the hood of filters, one of the most popular functions out there. You discovered that in Swift functional programming, a closure block is added at the end of our function, and that closure block is used within that function internally. This principle applies to every other major function that we're going to take a look at today. That is the basis of functional programming, and we're going to take a look at how other functions uses the same approach as well. Along with generics, Swift functional programming provides reusability as well as scalability in your code base. At the end of this lesson, I talked about element, which refers to the type of the array. In chapter 10, you will discover what the element refers to when talking about protocol and programming in Swift. So see you in the next lesson.